The first gut punch wasn't the title demotion. It was watching Logan, who still thought Git was a yoga pose, explain her roadmap to a room full of suits while she sat 2 rows back pretending to care about the bagel tray. For years, she'd bled into this place. No weekends, no maybe laters. Just coffee, code, and that silent, sick hope that someday someone would finally say, hey, this whole system works because of her. Instead, she got a junior dev rebranding her work as Logan's next-gen pivot. And then came the coup de grace, her admin access gone, quietly downgraded to contributor with no explanation. One morning, she woke up able to kill production servers. That afternoon, she couldn't even restart the sandbox. Just a polite little error message like a bouncer saying, nah, sweetheart, you're not on the list. By the way, real quick, if you're part of the 97% of folks who listen to these stories without subscribing, come on, don't be like Logan. Hit that subscribe button. Tap the like too, it actually keeps our team caffeinated enough to dig up these corporate horror shows. You clicking that button, that's our version of admin access. Anyway, back to Marissa. It hadn't always been like this. She joined back when the office was half IKEA furniture and half existential panic. Back then, the CTO used to hunch over her shoulder at 2 a.m., whispering things like, if this payment gateway fails again, we can't make payroll. She was the one who patched it, patched everything. Built the staging environment from scratch, documented the pipeline, duct taped the Slack bot that still ran daily deploy alerts. Quietly, competently, always a step ahead of the fire. And people used to notice. The CEO once called her the ghost in the machine and gave her a $50 Starbucks card like he was knighting her with caffeine. The board used to name drop her as their stability anchor. Hell, Logan used to ask her what API throttling meant. But then came the new VP. Fresh off some mid-tier competitor, no one respected, but everyone pretended to know, swaggering in with a mouth full of buzzwords and a vision board stapled to his ego. He called the current architecture legacy by design, rewrote feature priority based on vibes and LinkedIn comments, and scheduled meetings with titles like Reimagining Product Synergy that somehow lasted 3 hours but said nothing. Marissa played along. At first, gave him space. Let him flail, even fixed his broken Jira board without telling him. But when he started removing her name from the roadmap docs and then asked Logan to fill in the gaps, she felt that subtle click inside her. Like a fuse arming, she didn't explode. No, she started documenting. Quietly mirroring everything she touched into a sandboxed AWS space labeled Marissa Dev Archived. She forked the staging branch, wrapped it in multi-factor auth tied to her own SSO, and began setting retention policies on key assets. She wasn't stealing. She was preserving, for testing, for audit. For the day someone tried to pin this burning ship on her and act like she hadn't spent 4 years pouring her soul into the hull. And of course, that day was creeping closer. She watched the VP grow bolder, more reckless. He cut QA cycles, rushed deploys to meet vision milestones, and ignored her flagged bugs like they were spam. Logan, he soaked it up, started using phrases like product market resonance and lean feedback loops while slapping his name on charts he didn't know how to read. He even suggested renaming the staging environment Logan Land. Her reply? Cute, make sure Logan Land has backups. He laughed. Of course he did. So she stopped laughing, started planning. The final straw wasn't even dramatic. It was an empty invite. A strategy session about the Sequoia demo, her architecture, her code, her notes, and she wasn't on the list. Just Logan, the VP, a couple sales guys, and some intern who once asked if VPN was a Slack plugin. She stared at the calendar for a long moment, not mad, not surprised, just done. That night, she went home, made herself a drink, opened her private Git repo, labeled No One Else Cares, and clicked push. Then she opened her resume. 4 years compressed into 2 bullet points and a memory. Her cat curled up next to her. Outside, the snow started to fall. She didn't cry. She backed up the last of her folders instead. One in particular she labeled Sequoia Dry Run Final. She set the policy to auto-delete 90 days from that night, just enough time for things to look smooth until they weren't. Her smile was small, tight. She was no longer the ghost in the machine. She was the machine. Marissa stared at the invite list for the Sequoia prep call like it had personally slapped her with a keyboard. Logan, the VP, that marketing guy who once asked if front-end was a political term, even the HR associate who thought Scrum was a dietary supplement. But no Marissa, not even a courtesy copy. She didn't say a word. Just closed the calendar tab like it was a casket lid. The prep meeting rolled on upstairs without her. She knew because she could hear Logan through the thin drywall, regurgitating her architecture deck. She recognized every phrase, just dulled down, like someone explaining Shakespeare through a BuzzFeed quiz. Our pipeline is structured for rapid iteration and low latency rollback. No, it isn't, not since you cut the canary testing step. Genius. The architecture diagram shows the clean separation of microservices. Sure, after I redrew it 14 times to fix your post-it note version. When she built those diagrams, they looked like blueprints for a launch vehicle. Now, stripped of annotations and version control, they were just doodles for a tech's intern. The VP called it simplifying for investor digestion. What it really meant was making them idiot-proof enough for Logan to survive the Q&A. She kept a neutral face, smiled when people passed by, even nodded at Logan when he left the meeting beaming like he'd just split the atom. But inside, something had gone perfectly, irrevocably still. That night, she stayed late, alone, no music, no noise, just fingers clacking like a metronome of quiet rebellion. She started syncing her key build artifacts to a cloud directory labeled Testing Backup Sec. A misnomer, technically, but it fit the mood. Just a few harmless, tar-gz files. Nobody looked twice, especially not the VP, who was too busy prepping his new slide transitions in PowerPoint like the fate of the company hinged on pixel-perfect fade-ins. Marissa wasn't angry anymore. Anger was a young person's game. This wasn't rage, this was design. She opened her AWS console and spun up a clean instance. Private, isolated, tied to a billing method they couldn't trace unless they subpoenaed her cat's Venmo. Into that, she poured months of staging snapshots, CI/CD configs, auth tokens, dummy DB dumps, the lifeblood of their pre-production environment, all labeled, all timestamped, all hers. In the corner of her screen, the folder Sequoia dry run final blinked into existence. She set a 90-day retention policy. After that, auto-deletion, no warning, no backup, a digital Mayan calendar counting down to silence. Somewhere between commits, she found herself laughing, softly, bitterly, like someone reading their own eulogy written in Comic Sans. The best part? Nobody even noticed, because the moment a woman becomes quiet in a room full of men, they stop hearing her entirely, and silence makes the perfect cover for erasure. The VP strutted around the office the next morning talking about velocity. Logan bragged about getting FaceTime with the Sequoia team. Someone from Biz Ops said, "We should have brought her into that call, huh?" But nobody followed up. That week, Logan asked if she could review his final deck. She did, and said it looked fine, which it did. If you like delivering a demo held together by false confidence and control plus C. Marissa kept her head down, her lips sealed, and her AWS logs clean. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't revenge. It was backup. Because when you build everything, you don't need to shout to burn it down. You just stop holding it up. The worst part wasn't the theft. It was the applause. Marissa sat 2 chairs from the whiteboard, Logan up front, sleeves rolled to the elbows like he was about to deliver a baby instead of butcher a roadmap. Her roadmap. The same one she'd crafted over 3 months of midnight whiteboarding, skipped meals, and post-deploy whiskey. Only now it had a new name, Strategic Product Evolution V2, complete with Logan's stupid initials watermarked on the slides like a toddler signing their crayon art. He clicked through each quarter's milestones with fake modesty, mispronouncing terms she coined. Here in Q3, we begin Phase 2 of the modular gateway decompartmentalization. Decoupling. Someone in the back nodded like that meant anything. She watched as the room lapped it up, none of them noticing that the dates, titles, even the slide layout were all hers. He hadn't even changed the color scheme. Just stripped out the notes section, where she'd left the actual technical justifications, and replaced it with buzzwords like North Star and Value Unlock. Then he landed on the final slide, a simplified Gantt chart she had once agonized over aligning to 6 time zones of cross-functional teams. He had removed the dependencies entirely, like launch sequences didn't matter, like a roadmap was just a vibe. Marissa didn't raise her hand. She didn't storm out. She waited until the VP finished nodding along like a bobblehead at a sales convention and said, voice calm as dry ice, "That's funny. That looks identical to the roadmap I shared in January down to the Sprint 18 milestone. Same title, same sequence. Even the typo in authorization." The room hushed like a sitcom with the laugh track yanked out. Logan blinked. The VP chuckled, and said, "Let's focus on collaboration, not credit, yeah? We're a team here, alignment over ego." Marissa smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Logan went back to stumbling through the last 2 slides, voice cracking just a hair now while she sat frozen, watching her dignity get ground into confetti under the steel-toed boot of male mediocrity. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She went home. Booted up her old laptop, black ThinkPad, stickers peeling at the edges like dead skin. It whirred to life, fans struggling like an asthmatic donkey, but it worked. Inside was a folder she hadn't touched in years. No one else cares. She stared at it for a long while, then clicked it open. In it lived her original codebase from the early days, before the sprints, before the politics, before Logan. When the company was 3 developers and a CTO with a caffeine problem, and Marissa had been the only adult in the room. She started updating it, not because she was planning anything dramatic, because touching clean code again, her code, was the closest she'd felt to sanity in months. She didn't fork it yet, not officially, but she began mapping, sketching, rewriting old modules that had since been bastardized by committee. She poured herself a drink, neat, and worked in silence, just her and the machine, fingers dancing like a pianist returning to a favorite song. Somewhere around 1 a.m., she paused, a tiny smirk curled at the edge of her mouth as she renamed the README file to README Final V2, but actually final. The next morning, she submitted her Jira updates like nothing had happened. attended the sync, nodded when Logan asked her to backfill the logic slide he didn't understand, took notes when the VP said they needed to move fast and break things. Marissa thought, funny. That's exactly what I plan to do. She clicked open a new private repo. Typed, no one else cares rebuild. Set the visibility to private. Added one user herself. Commit message reclaiming the wheel. The first line of code was simple, just a shell. But sometimes all you need is a shell to build a bomb. The meeting was set for 3:15 p.m. on a Tuesday, the kind of mid-afternoon slot where ambition goes to die. Marissa arrived exactly on time, coffee in hand, laptop closed, hair tied back like she was about to suture a wound. The VP was late, of course. Swaggered in with a plastic smile and a half-eaten granola bar like he was doing her a favor just by showing up. Marissa, he said, dragging her name out like it owed him rent. What's up? She didn't waste time. I'd like to formally request a title change, Director of Engineering. I've been leading cross-functional infra for over a year now, including architecture, deployments, and incident response. I've already outlined the responsibilities I'm managing compared to those in that role across industry benchmarks, and I believe the title would align with the work I'm already doing. She didn't stutter, didn't over-explain, just facts stated like gravity. The VP didn't even glance at her printout. Instead, he leaned back like he was the final boss in a startup-themed video game, chewed slowly, and said, "We don't negotiate with staff." Words hung there, not cruel, not angry, just dismissive, the way you might swat a fly or delete a spam email offering one weird trick to lose belly fat. Marissa nodded, got it. He blinked. That's it? Yep, he smirked. Glad we're aligned. And just like that, the meeting ended. No drama, no fireworks, just one woman choosing not to hand over any more pieces of herself for a title he'd already given, unofficially, to Logan in every meeting that mattered. She didn't go back to her desk. She went straight to the HR portal, scheduled an off-cycle exit meeting for the next morning, and opened a blank doc titled, Resignation Letter Final Dated. She kept it simple. 2 weeks' notice. Final day, the morning of the Sequoia demo. She stared at the date for a moment, then smiled, not wide, not smug. Just the kind of smile you give the mirror when you finally decide to leave a party that stopped being fun 3 drinks ago. Then came the quiet part. She flipped open her dev console and pulled the credential set labeled Stage Master KEY. It was an old token, issued back when the system still trusted her, back when people still did. She scrolled to the expiry field and added a new parameter. Expires at demo day plus 2 min. Not a kill switch. Not sabotage, just a scheduled lapse. Legal, documented, invisible to anyone who wasn't looking, and no one was. She wrapped it in a commit, attached a system note, rotating credential short TTL for security hygiene. Standard procedure. Boring even. Except the TTL wasn't short, it was precise. 2 minutes into the live Sequoia demo. Just long enough for the first few slides, the product walkthrough, the opening wow moment, and then darkness. She closed the tab, logged off. At home, she made herself dinner, nothing dramatic, just leftovers and a glass of red that had been breathing since Sunday. She watched reruns, pet the cat, folded laundry with the kind of serenity that only comes when you know the next move is already in motion. Logan messaged her that evening asking if she could ghost review the Sequoia slide deck. She typed, sure thing, looking forward to it, then muted the thread. There was nothing left to fix. She wasn't staying to save them. Just long enough to make sure she left clean. 2 weeks, 14 days. After that, she'd be a ghost they could neither summon nor replace. Her resignation landed in HR's inbox like a feather dropped down a well, quiet, invisible, and promptly ignored. 2 days later, an intern she'd never met showed up with a beige manila folder and said, "Hey Marissa, I was told to, collect your signature for exit processing." No handshake. No thank you for your service, just boilerplate and borrowed toner. She signed without reading. HR sent her a calendar invite for her final offboarding, subject line, Marissa T. Separation Wrap-Up, not even her full name. Separation like they were amputating a limb and didn't want to know whose. The VP didn't say a word, walked past her twice that week like she was an office plant. On Thursday, even asked Logan if the infra cleanup ticket was ready for handoff. Logan nodded like he understood, and Marissa watched it happen, like a surgeon watching a clown attempt heart surgery with salad tongs. They were all too focused on the Sequoia demo. Investors, buzz, valuation. Everyone flitting around like anxious squirrels, prepping slides, updating typefaces, trying to align the vision to a narrative arc none of them understood. The product was stable. Thanks to her, the pipeline was smooth because of her. The staging environment still existed, solely because she hadn't revoked access yet. She walked the hallways with the composure of a woman who already knew the ending. Instead of unplugging systems or yanking wires, she did something far quieter, documentation. But not the kind that helps. She filled out the handoff guides, yes, labeled all the folders, dropped in screenshots, used friendly bullet points and Slack emoji energy. At first glance, it looked pristine, but she rewrote the service account walkthrough with one step out of order. Swapped 2 environment variables in the deploy flow, subtle enough to look like a typo, catastrophic enough to delay a hotfix by hours. She described a non-existent dashboard called Stage Eyes as if it were real, and watched Logan nod when she mentioned it aloud, eyes glazing with pretend comprehension. For the staging logs, she said they were rotated to cold storage with a 7-day TTL via OpSpot. There was no OpSpot. There was no cold storage. But Logan, bless his heart, typed it down like gospel. She scrubbed names from code comments, replaced useful headers with vague placeholders like ## integration handler do not edit, deleted her own README notes folder, and replaced it with a blank one containing a single text file. You cannot ghost what you do not know txt. No one noticed. No one even asked. Marissa spent her final days like a woman packing for trip no one else knew about, clearing her desk, pulling her plants one by one, emptying her Git history of breadcrumbs. Every time someone asked how handoff prep was going, she smiled and said, "Almost done?" On Friday, someone brought cupcakes to celebrate Sequoia week. Logan offered her one with blue frosting and a crooked smile. "Hey, thanks again for helping with the demo stuff. I know wrapping up, but we're in a good spot now." She nodded, took the cupcake, bit into it like communion. That evening, she pulled the last thread. In her AWS console, she watched the Sequoia dry run final token ticking toward expiration like a timer in a locked room. Still valid. Still holding. She didn't touch it. Didn't need to. The code was clean. The trap was set. All that was left now was to walk out smiling and wait for them to realize the scaffolding they'd ripped out was still holding up the roof. Friday morning, 8:03 a.m. Marissa walked in with a box of donuts like it was any other day. No fanfare, no grand finale. Just a white cardboard dozen with a smudge of jelly already bleeding through the bottom. She placed them gently in the break room next to the burnt coffee pot and scribbled "Happy Demo Day" on a sticky note, smiley face and all. She didn't linger. Just turned and walked the floor one last time. People were buzzing. PowerPoint was open on 5 monitors. Someone was arguing about font size. Logan was pacing near the elevator, rehearsing his intro lines, muttering things like market vertical and early adoption curve under his breath like they were spells that might ward off technical questions. No one looked at her twice. Perfect. She returned to her desk. One plant left, snake plant, borderline immortal. She wrapped it in an old hoodie and tucked it under her arm like a baby. Her backpack was already zipped, laptop inside, charger neatly coiled. No post-its left behind. No personal items in drawers, just the shell of where she used to matter. At 8:36 a.m., she shut down her work email. Slack auto-logged out. GitHub kicked a soft 403 when she tested her credentials, just to be sure. All clean. She walked one loop of the floor, half out of habit, half out of something harder to name. This was the office where she'd debugged outages at 2 a.m., where she'd slept under her desk during the Series B sprint week, where she'd built something that worked, until the people around it stopped working with her. She passed Logan. He nodded nervously, mouth full of frosting. "Hey, thanks again for the docs. Think I'm all set for the walkthrough." "You are," she said, "and you're not." Her last stop was the VP's office. He was in there alone, sleeves rolled, staring at his reflection in the black screen of the wall-mounted monitor like he expected it to wink back. Marissa leaned just slightly into the doorway, one foot still in the hall. "2-minute warning for the Sequoia demo," she said, casual as weather talk. He looked up, chuckled. "Still bitter, huh?" Her smile was almost kind. She didn't answer, just turned. Left her badge, plastic frayed lanyard and all, neatly centered on her desk. Next to it, her company-issued laptop, lid closed, power cable coiled like a snake taking a nap. Then she walked out. No one followed. No applause. Not even a Slack emoji wave. The front door made a soft click behind her as it latched shut. Cold morning air hit her like a baptism. She took one breath, then another. Her pulse was steady almost. There it was, that faint tremble of adrenaline. The kind that hits when you're walking away from something not just broken, but finally finished. A text pinged her phone. "Your offboarding session has been canceled. Please contact HR if rescheduling is needed." She deleted it without reading the rest. Marissa turned the corner, dropped her box of old hoodies into the trunk, and slid into the driver's seat. She didn't start the engine. Instead, she tapped her phone open one last time and pulled up the AWS dashboard. Status, token, Sequoia dry run final expires in 000213 right on schedule. The wheel was out of her hands now, and the road behind her was already on fire. 10:02 a.m. Boardroom lights were dimmed just enough to feel expensive. A line of polished shoes under a table that cost more than Marissa's car. On one side, the executive team, VP, CTO, CEO, plus some nervous product folks who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. On the other side, Sequoia Capital, the gods of venture funding, sitting still, eyes like loaded weapons behind minimalist glasses. Logan stood at the head of the table, blazer a size too big, hair gelled like a high school debate champion. His voice cracked just slightly as he said, "Let's walk through a real-time simulation of the new architecture rollout. This staging environment is a mirror of what we deploy at scale." He clicked the remote. Nothing happened. He clicked again, still nothing. A moment passed. Then the CTO frowned, leaned forward, "Try staging." Logan tapped again, harder this time. Still nothing. Someone cleared their throat. On the projector screen, a frozen loading icon, a mock-up banner where the dashboard should be. Her product, suspended mid-breath like it had just realized its lungs were gone. The room started to tense. Shoulders shifted, eyes narrowed. Give it a sec, Logan muttered, glancing nervously at the VP. Just a little latency spike. The CTO was already opening his laptop, fingers moving fast. His expression went from focus to pale in 4 keystrokes. Then, quietly he said, the staging environment isn't there. The VP turned. What do you mean not there? I mean it's gone. There's no active instance. No failover, nothing. It's like someone pulled the plug and shredded the manual. The CEO leaned in. Do we have a mirror? The CTO didn't answer right away. Just stared at his screen like it had betrayed him. Logan said, maybe it's a permissions bug. We could ping Marissa. VP cut him off with a laugh that sounded like panic disguised as optimism. She's gone. We've got the documentation. The CTO's eyes flicked toward him. No, we don't. We have something, but it's boilerplate. I checked the configs last night and the last real push was over a month ago, and the access token expired 12 minutes ago. Silence. One of the Sequoia partners tapped his pen once, click. Then again, click. Finally, someone from the back of the room said, barely above a whisper, wasn't Marissa running the infra? Another voice, older, calmer, said she was the infra. That's when the panic set in. The VP reached for his phone. The CEO leaned back, arms crossed, lips pressed into a line that said, I told you this day would come. Logan just stared at the screen like if he blinked it might reboot out of pity. The CTO ran a recursive lookup on every known staging alias. Nothing. No logs, no backups, no breadcrumbs. He pulled up the AWS console. Account deactivated, token expired. Environment archived with auto-deletion, timestamp 10 o'clock a.m. sharp. Legal, clean, surgical. The VP finally found his voice. Can we spin up a backup? The CTO didn't even look up. There is no backup. Across the table, a Sequoia partner closed his notebook. Another slowly pushed their chair back. No one spoke, not yet. But the whisper was already curling like smoke under the door. She ran it all. She was the redundancy plan. The VP's mouth moved before his brain could catch up. It's gotta be the legacy stack. She always said the infrastructure was duct taped together. We've been meaning to modernize, the CEO didn't even turn his head. Just said, calm and cold, you said she was redundant. Fix it. Silence. The CTO, still hunched over his keyboard like it might bite him, didn't speak. He didn't need to, he just started digging. Terminal open, last access logs, credential tracebacks, the paper trail, invisible until it mattered most. It didn't take long. There it was, an environment decommission notice. Clean, deliberate, timestamp 10 o'clock a.m. sharp, 2 minutes into the demo. Signed with a commit tag, MT final exit. No rage, no bomb. Just a scalpel slicing exactly where it would bleed the most. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. Logan leaned over, blinking like a kid seeing a magician saw a woman in half for real this time. Wait, that was her? I thought she left everything behind. The CTO finally looked up. She was everything. Across the table, one of the Sequoia partners stood, adjusted his cuffs. Apologies, he said flatly. We'll need to reschedule or not. The others followed. No yelling. No performative outrage. Just the quiet efficiency of people who had seen 1,000 startups die and now recognized another body on the slab. One of them on his way out muttered, they're not operational. The VP tried to stop them. Wait, we can show you the roadmap Logan has, but they were already gone. The CEO slowly stood, arms crossed. Not a single muscle in his face moved. He looked at the VP like he was considering the cost of human error versus the price of litigation. Redundant, huh? The VP swallowed. I didn't mean she was, but it didn't matter. Because right then, all anyone could hear was the ghost of Marissa's warning, 2-minute warning for the Sequoia demo. They'd laughed. They weren't laughing now. The CTO turned his laptop to face the CEO. On the screen, the commit history, clean as a museum case. Token deprecate 001 env expire config final log sync removed, each one signed with her initials. Each one perfectly timed. Each one completely legal. The VP stepped back as if distance would save him from fallout. I thought she was bluffing, he said, barely audible. No, the CEO replied. She was documenting. Outside the boardroom, people were starting to talk. Slack threads buzzing. Product team blinking at 404 errors they couldn't explain. DevOps channels lighting up red with alerts no one could acknowledge. The kingdom hadn't burned. It had been unplugged. From somewhere miles away, maybe a beach, maybe a bar, maybe just her back porch with a glass of wine, Marissa didn't smile. She didn't need to. She already knew they'd finally see her the moment she was gone. The board meeting was called emergency style, no catered lunch, no slide decks, no fake optimism. Just suits, silence, and the smell of reputations cooking alive under halogen lights. The CEO sat at the head of the table, a marble statue of disbelief. Around him, the board members demanded answers with their eyes, their crossed arms, their 1,000-yard stares that said, you told us she didn't matter. The CTO stood like a man at his own sentencing. No backups, one of them asked, voice thin and sharp. No. CTO replied. No rebuild, not before Q2, not without Marissa, and we don't even know where she migrated half the logic. There were flags, quiet ones, but they weren't actioned. He didn't mention the Slack threads, they were already up on screen. Pinned messages from Marissa dating back 6 months. We need to discuss and for handoff planning. Only one person has access to the full staging pipeline. Current structure violates all redundancy best practices. Please review attached doc. Succession Plan V3, PDF. No one had replied. The VP, seated in shameful silence, looked like a man who'd been handed his own obituary and asked to read it aloud. By mid-afternoon, Sequoia's exit became official. Not a press release, just a quiet email that circulated like a plague. Word moved faster than code. A competitor CTO tweeted a cryptic emoji. VC group chats lit up like wildfire, pulling from Red Wolf. Staging imploded, she walked. Founder team is a mess, no redundancy, avoid. One by one calls were canceled. Calendars cleared, seat extensions paused. A partner from another firm quietly messaged the CEO, "We'll revisit next year if the platform still exists." At the center of it all, a void where Marissa used to sit. A space no one filled because no one could explain how it had all worked, only that it did until it didn't. Far away, far enough that the crash of surf drowned out the memory of Slack pings, Marissa sat under an umbrella with a drink that came with fruit and a sparkler. Her laptop was shut, her feet were bare, and her phone, face down on the table, buzzed like a polite ghost trying to get her attention. She let it vibrate twice before flipping it over. 17 unread emails. 8 were recruiters. 3 were old colleagues from other jobs. Subject lines like "OMG, did you really do that?" and "I owe you a drink." One was from her landlord, rent reminder. Fine, but one in particular sat at the top. Subject, principal role, discreet inquiry preview. "Hey, we saw what happened at your last place. You available for principal role? It's yours if you want it. No interviews." She stared at it for a long, slow beat, not because she didn't know the answer, but because there was power in choosing not to need revenge once you'd already won. Her finger hovered over reply for just a second. Then she clicked archive. Her phone went black. The ocean didn't care. Neither did the sky. And for the first time in 4 years, Marissa smiled without any trace of code behind it. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit 'em.